Art is as old as time, you know, from the cavemen scribbling directions and warnings inside the caves, you know, down to present day use of AI to do unimaginable things, right? The journey of art can't even be contained in a single conversation because, you know, you think about the evolutions, the regions, and then the evolutions of the specific regions. But art has been enduring because it is one of the foremost human expressions. There has been a very long effort to legitimize African art, not because it lacks legitimacy on its own, but because of the politics and politicking of art globally. And because of this, there was a renaissance, or there's an ongoing renaissance happening in Africa, where individuals who feel strongly about the importance and relevance of African art have taken it upon themselves to platform African art and promote African artists. 1952 Africa is one of such organizations where, at our core, we really care about African art and African artists. 1952 is an organization that was founded to ensure or to see to the platforming of African arts and artists, and not just the platforming of the names or of the works, but, you know, ensuring there's also a financial inclusion for African artists where the legitimacy of their work also translates into the financial gain that they are able to accrue from the works of their hand. So 1952 sits at that sweet spot of empowering artists, you know, through education, skill acquisition, and hands-on training. So we train them in both the ethos of the work, in the skill and crafts of the work, right? And also in the business development aspects of the work. The theme of this year, Between Here and Elsewhere, is a nod to change and movement and transition, both on the interpersonal level and on the global level. I mean, we're in the middle of a lot of global transitions now. We're in the middle of an industrial revolution. We're in the middle of a lot of governmental and regime changes across Africa. This is the year when a lot of countries are electing new presidents and new representatives. We're also in this global situation where there's a question on citizenship: who belongs in a place, who has the right to pass through a border. And it is no longer a conversation between, you know, centered on just one continental shelf. One thing I like about the arts is that over time, artists have been the ones to make an emotional sense of a lot of these transitions. Yes, things are happening, and because things are happening, a lot of people might not be able to process all of these changes, but artists are the ones who are able to, you know, step back and look at the emotional effects of all of these transitions, all of these changes, and, you know, put that into the work that they do. So really, it's about change, movement, transition, and seeing what is possible, or making a thing out of here and there.
As an artist who grew up in a very typical hostel space, I believe my interest or my fascination in some of these materials that I've worked with over the years ties back to histories of the transatlantic slave trade, histories of migration, histories of trade, histories of labor, and the resilience of the African body and spirit. I think a couple of years back I started experimenting with the ocean water, because I've always been to the space, collected the materials, but never really worked with the ocean water. And so working with the ocean water, I started realizing a lot of possibilities as an artist and how these possibilities tie back to African histories. For me, I've always seen the shore or the ocean as a site for reconnection, site for migration.
My art is an exploration of Omenala, which means tradition, and it is supposed to remove those barriers that stop us from wanting to know more about our roots. So yeah, I would say for me, my art is a personal exploration, and it's also something that allows me to connect to my home and honor the people that came before me.
So my work are fluid. I started working with ambiguity as a structure because I'm looking at the tensions and contradictions of the world that exist in me as an individual, in the way the world runs. And it's like the world is a layered place. Like I'm thinking about Lagos, Nigeria, Africa, history, upbringing, values, traditions. Like all these experiences hold tradition and the whole disruption. And I grew up in the middle of this. And I remember, sometimes watching historical videos and seeing some kind of treatments that are very sensitive to watch. And there is the feeling of anger. There is thereafter living and having good moments with family, and there is a feeling of joy. And there is also going around, there is a feeling of wonder. And all of these I see coexist. The way that it's like as an artist, I'm using ambiguity, I'm looking at Yoruba cosmology, and issue is the deity that sits in the center of what I'm exploring. And I'm brought up as a Christian, and I will have to deal with that, dynamic of, Christianity and the knowledge that I need to explore traditionally to comprehend the world and to, encode meaning into the works that I'm making, because these things I think is structure for the future as well. And looking into these spaces, this layeredness is where I'm clinching on. I'm not shying away from these intricacies of feeling. And because of that, I realized that since tradition and disruption sit side by side, it's a paradoxical world, and that's what my work understands. So I carry this paradox into my work. I let that be an information, a way to honor the truth of what it means for the world to exist.
My work so far has explored material that I find locally. I try to decolonize the ideas that certain materials are exotic, especially because these materials are indigenous and found locally. My work looks at stones, gemstones. I come from a place called Abeokuta, and direct translation from that to English means under the rock. And we've had a good affiliation with rocks over time and stones. And I try to reconnect with that whole lineage and understand that whole method of seeing things and that synergy that we've had over time to look at these materials. These materials I get all over the country, from east to the west. We are blessed with stones, gemstones, and a lot of other mineral resources. My work seems to bring that to the forefront and have people, like I said, decolonize that idea of these materials being exotic, especially because these materials are indigenous and locally found.
So my journey into art has been very, very spontaneous from the very beginning, brutal, raw, and I seek to be very, very expressive about it. So I went into art as a self-taught artist that has no pre-educational program before. I just discovered art. Happens to be, I found myself in a place where artists were having a residency, and I was so curious that the art interpels me and give me the possibility to be able to understand that I can express myself through art. So from that very period, that was far back in early 2016, in Casablanca, Morocco, to be precise. From that very period, I have enjoyed this domain and I've continued to enjoy it. It has made me travel the world, it has made me go places, connect with people. So my journey into art has been full of opportunities, full of blessings, as well as full of, ups and downs. And I just look forward to see what all of this will lead me to.
I have 5 brothers, right? So the idea of what a woman is supposed to be like, of course, of course, being in the world, I have that experience. But in terms of how I was raised, it is very much more masculine. And when I say masculine, I mean it's covered with audacity. And like when I think about challenges, I just go past them for real. Like, it doesn't mean that they don't exist. And even me, with the work that I do, it involves a lot of travel, and it involves a lot of having to have respect for tradition, and women can't even be close to masquerades. But look, that image behind me, I took that photo of a masquerade standing right in front of me that let me take that let me take the photo. So it's also like a way to say that this is where we are now in 2025. And unfortunately, we don't need to have those blankets of, oh, I'm a woman, I can't do this. You literally can do anything that you want to do. And I think that obviously having so many siblings that are guys subconsciously taught me a lot of audacity. Like, no's really don't mean that much to me. And, even when I went back to my hometown, I've covered the Ikeji Festival and the Egungun Festival in Ibadan. And when I was doing the festival in Ibadan, I kept thinking, oh, this was my hometown, or where I was taking these photos. Like, they kind of know me, they kind of know my family. Is it going to be the same experience when I'm in a completely different place? Like, I don't want to be flogged, or I don't want to overstep, And I think that's why I say my work is spirit led, because I feel like there's energy of me with a masquerade, and we just connect, and they seem to just want to connect with me. It's a really funny experience, but it really makes me feel aligned in what I'm doing, because when I'm actually on the field, that fear absolutely goes out of my head.
The greatest challenge has been to remain faithful to experimentation, in a context where the work I do demands conformity, working with the ocean water and other unconventional materials invites skepticism, but it also teaches resilience. For me, every obstacle, from limited resources to institutional neglect, has refined my sense of purpose. I've learned that scarcity is not absence, but an invitation to innovate. It has pushed me towards a more intuitive and almost spiritual relationship with my materials. Each limitation becoming a collaborator, guiding my work towards unexpected revelation, if I should say.
Culture is not stagnant. I feel at some point in time we have been colonized to demonize things that have once been natural to us, and we've seemed to start fearing things that are once okay. And it's like a culture erasure and an identity erasure of some sort when you start to fight your own personal identity, or the things that are culturally yours. And me keeping hair could be seen, keeping dreadlocks is a kind of ode to what was, and a defiance to that new ideology whereby what we look like naturally and what we've respected over time has been hijacked by new colonial ideas.
Identity is a very, very particular something as well. It is a community objective. But I think it's not about the common person. It's about our institutions, our government, and all these leaders that we have in place. They are the ones to give a sense of belonging to what we do. Because at the end, if they cannot stand by us, the identity that we try to defend and fight for might somehow seem meaningless, even though it means a lot to individual as an artist. But as a community, I think African leaders, they need to step the games up. Like, they are not doing enough. We have institutions that need support. We have platforms that are doing great jobs, but they are yet to be recognized. So as a young artist who is in this, how can I put it, in this journey as well, I think artists are doing just great. But our leaders have to do more than what they are doing right now.
There's a huge part of the African story that the world is yet to understand, and it's not because the world doesn't like us or looks down on us. I often say that it is a responsibility of the oppressed to change his or her own circumstance and not the oppressor. So we've got to move from expecting more from the world to presenting ourselves in the way that we want the world to perceive us. We're very much for expeditions, tours, where we present African culture, fashion, arts in a world-class manner. Not as trinkets or as things that you can get on discount, but as world-class, objects of admiration.